Okay, it is 1 p.m. Welcome to the April 20th, 2026 Committee of the Whole. Now call this meeting to order. Call for approval of the agenda. Motion, please. Councillor Cripps.
I move to approve the April 20th, 2026 Committee of the Whole agenda as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Seed. Any questions or comments? Councillor
comments. I'll be stepping up for item 4.1 and 4.2, just regarding discussion on the targeted sector support.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move down to administration reports, and we'll start with City Manager Rosenthal Heater.
Being that it's 4.1, I'll be
Yes.
stepping out of the room, and yeah, somebody just call me back.
Okay, thank you.
See you in a bit.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So the item I have for discussion today is moving forward with the recommendation to move forward with the application for the TPS initiative grant, along with the Town of Osler as our partner municipality. And this just refers back to the previous discussions we had before about development opportunities for 2026 for Council and moving forward with a partner municipality. And Osler was the municipality that was interested in also moving forward with this sort of opportunities. So the recommendation I have for Council is that you approve the grant application, allowing administration to move forward with completing the application with Osler as the municipality that we're in partnership with.
Any questions or comments? This is such a great deal and opportunity. You know, depending on how much we want to engage in, like for sure the speakers, and then if people want to take the other opportunity they can. It's not compulsory by any means. Councillor C.
I just think this is exactly what Council asked administration to do. I know even speaking with some of our Osler colleagues at SUMA, they're very much, you know, kind of behind where we were, and they look for opportunities like this all the time because they don't have the capital funds to do something like this themselves either. So I think it's a good opportunity for both.
75% off is a great deal. Any other comments with this one? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
4.2, did you, that's just the appendices, right?
Yes,
Okay.
so now we're on to, yeah, we can vote on that.
Okay, Broadway strategic plan, yeah. 1 and 2 are together. Welcome.
So the second item I have here is the 2026 to 2029 strategic plan. This is the quarter 1 update. And really for quarter 1, so what you'll see is that I've identified everything in the attachment as either a watch item, an on-track item, or, you know, there's concerns there. And so far at this point, we don't have any concerns with anything. Most of the items except for one, I have marked them as a watch, and that's because with the first check-in, so the quarter 1 of the first year, we're making progress on every item, but not enough yet to report any KPIs or anything like that. So I guess what I'm looking for here is feedback from Council too on if you like the dashboard that I've provided or if you'd like to see anything different. And I think that the dashboard would change as we move further through the process too. And we are at a point where we're making more progress on things. But for this point in time, if that's what you'd like to see as far as the update goes.
Okay, any questions, comments, or more information you need, or, and I realize the discussion as mentioned, it's limited at this point, but comments? Councillor Mace.
I like the updates.
Yeah.
I like the way it's laid out. Personally, it's easy to follow. It's easy for me to see where we're at and just and what we were working on just as a refresher. So I liked it.
Other questions, comments, Councillor C?
I like the format for sure. The green, yellow, red is good. The only thing I would like to see potentially added is, just as an example, if we look at like 3.0, where we have the maintaining and enhancing services, and it says, you know, we're reviewing the snow removal, and that in the future we'll get some feedback. I'd like to see a time frame. So are we getting that back in quarter 2, or are we getting that back? Do we anticipate having that in August? Where is it? You know, just something a little bit of a timeline, because this is like, we're working on it, it'll happen. I'd just like to know when, so that we can be ready for that and see some of that. And then, yeah, I guess there's something else we'll talk offline.
Okay, any other comments, Councillor Beck?
Yeah, so the general presentation and is certainly good there. Regarding, let's say, like our more specific KPIs, like there again, seeing how far along the project is always nice. I mean, like I know, like obviously like the general statement's there, but we're reviewing or doing whatever. It doesn't tell us exactly how far along in that process that we are. So like there again, this is a great high level update, but it still doesn't bring in any of those other pieces, right?
Yeah.
So, with that, like even if it's kind of broken down, I think it's what, 4 or 5 different areas, per 6. So with that there, even if it's, let's say 1 per meeting kind of coming forward just as an update, because then that kind of keeps that particular section, say like the fresh for all council there too. So.
Sure, I think as we move further in the process, and there are certainly more KPIs to report, definitely.
Yeah, and I suppose that's, that's tough in terms of seeing exactly where we are in terms of the complete, heading and topic, that's on there, right? So that, so I guess that's why I look at KPIs and like the specifics really kind of help us in terms of framing how far along in the process that we are, and kind of gauging that, so.
Any other comments? Again, I like it. I like that right away I can see if there's anything red, and if there's no red, I can start looking at at yellow, start to say what are we maybe not moving towards, or any challenges there. So the clarity is great. I also appreciate timelines that what is the goal for some of these specifically, and that just helps as a measurement too. Okay, thank you.
So the next report I have is a check-in on the changes we had made to the report format and the committee of the whole meeting structure. And there's kind of 2 parts to that. The first is the revised report format, and then the second is the meeting structure, and specifically the practice of directors attending the council table and when presenting a decision item or requested by council for discussion. So this is just a check-in to see how council is liking both of those items. If you'd like to see any changes brought forward to either, if you'd like to revert to the way we used to do it, or a hybrid of the 2. One of the things that administration, or that I did note, and you'll see on this report then too, is that there's some items, and this is an example where we don't need a decision, but it's also not just for information, so it's a discussion item, and so I did add that as a category there at the report type top there.
Okay, any questions or comments on this one? Councillor Cripps?
I like this format, and I don't mind only bringing the directors in when they're required to, because I think it keeps that clarity for them as well when they're in there and council's having a discussion, and we all have different opinions on things, and they're not getting that muddy water when they leave. It's like, oh yeah, what did they say? It's just we have the discussion, we go through you go through your directors, and it kind of keeps the waters a little clearer, I think.
Other question, comments on Councillor Seed?
The only comment, I like the format, I like the way we're going. I really despise it on any presentation when somebody's just reading the document that's in front of you. Like somebody's coming to do a report and they're just giving them exactly what they have. So I like that they don't have to read the information-only reports. The only thing I was thinking about with this is that from an efficiency standpoint, I would be curious to see your thoughts on if we allowed people that are not expected to, I guess, sit in person, if you will, the opportunity to just be working in their office and called on if council needs them from an efficiency standpoint. Because I see times where we may have a director that's sitting here that's given a report that's very, very basic, there's nothing dramatic there, and yet they have to sit here for 3 or 4 hours. Yeah. And I'm just wondering about from an efficiency standpoint if they could be, at City Hall but available if something is called just for, and by choice maybe, like if they don't want to sit here, they don't have to sit here. That's because I think it would bore me to death sitting here if it had nothing to do with me, and I really had other stuff I could be doing.
I think that's a good idea, and I think maybe then if a councillor would like to hear from the person sitting at the table, if you could give us the heads up ahead of time too.
Even in the discussion, if it came up, it wouldn't be hard to go and get somebody and bring them in, right?
I'm going to take the other side on that one a bit, and just the spirit of committee of the whole was we're all here. And I think that this is our one time a month that we have all decision makers in one room together. And it all goes back to when we were building Warman Home Center Communiplex, that finance didn't necessarily know what recreation was doing, and planning didn't necessarily know with all of those aspects. And that's where this all almost evolved from, to say we need all decision makers in the room for certain topics. And so it allows that to know that we're making big decisions, if at all possible, be here. It sort of loses its, if we're just having a meeting, then it changes the committee of the whole in my mind, that we don't have all decision makers here, and somebody will get lost in the shuffle when, it may get lost in the shuffle, because some of it's them hearing no different than we're hearing this council. So I think it's any discussions that come up, making them more efficient, I totally agree. Like, I like the format because now we can really work to get these to be 2 hours instead of 5 hours long. And just because we're not going through reports that, we all have a responsibility to read. And if we have any questions or comments, we can ask the person to come up. But I like the discussion aspect too, that it doesn't necessarily, we need a decision, but let's open it up to discussion like we have in ECDev there today, that it's more of an open one, but it's not really we're making any decisions, but it's just opening up to discussion. So I don't know if I'd like to, make it then it almost becomes like a council meeting and we don't have all decision makers there.
I never even thought of that. I was thinking more regular meeting of councils and committee of the whole. But going off what you said, then if that's the case, then whether they have a report or not, with that in mind, then they should still all be here, whether they have a report or not, right? If that's the idea of it, and you want everybody linked in on what everyone else is doing, and keeping everybody up to date, then whether they have a report or not, they should be here.
Cousin.
Are there times when administrators would have the discretion because maybe they don't have something that they need to say here, and something is really, really important and pressing and burning that they have to deal with? So I wonder if that's also a possibility. They've made every effort to be here, but there are burning important things that some administrators have to deal with at certain times, and I wonder if, in those instances, they would be able to, remove themselves from the meeting and be able to take on what they need.
We do use some of that discretion now already. There are times where for whatever reason, somebody hasn't been able to be here, and so we, move forward without them, and it's been okay.
I think the format that we have now is a good kind of mechanism to keep in place, in the sense of, it's a good opportunity just even to have some, if you've got a question or something that's kind of burning that maybe needs to be asked with all of council present, as opposed to just doing something where, we send a question to yourself, city manager, and then that gets filtered to the appropriate manager. And I think when it comes down to it, everybody that's at that senior, leadership level within the organization, I believe probably has a component of their job description that talks about being in front of council at times. And so I think this is that opportunity where we have a chance to actually do that information sharing. And, there could even be something come out of the committee of the whole meeting where it's, this is something we want somebody to look into. And if that particular administration person isn't here, then some of that messaging could get lost through that, game of telephone where city managers take it back. But some of that could get lost in that process. So I do like the idea of having administration here, even though they may not be necessarily speaking to a report. I just think that enhances things.
Councilor Beck.
Yeah, going on the preservation of certainly our managers being in attendance, it is hugely important in terms of, we talked about how siloed our departments work, and there again to see and hear exactly how everything is going across the whole entire organization. Because there again, while everybody has their job performance and the roles and responsibilities, together as a working unit, that's what builds the brand, and that's what we've been working on. That kind of thing. I know, a specific focus since 2010 and going forward in terms of that branding and whatnot. And there again, seeing, hearing, what's happening, like in the other things. To be in the room is different than not being here. So, and I think also there's a bit of a, let's say, efficiency in that where. Everybody's aware that they have to be here, so they, schedule their responsibilities, say accordingly, right? And this is one date that doesn't change, because when we're back at the format where there's 6 or 7 different committees kind of going on, and there was random dates that you're meeting and times and trying to schedule and whatever. This is a one day where you have to make sure that your department, either, can get a hold of you and deal with those important things, or, like it gets, pushed off to another day where you're not here. But I think that communication where everybody hears the same thing is absolutely paramount to why we do it this way.
Councillor Kirkland.
It's also a good reminder, I kinda lost it, but sitting on a construction association, we built a package for onboarding staff and directors to go back with some of the history, cause like if you weren't there, you know, I even, like from last term, I didn't know that we had like the silos that was that divided, so when you have someone say, well, this is how we got here, right? You get a whole turnover, you know, like right now it's good, but you get a whole turnover and someone doesn't, or you know, like Councillor Tooley's left, but he doesn't remember, then you can repeat those mistakes of the past by not having them brought up and people around that remember. So if you have a turnover, it's nice when you have maybe those onboarding packages for the oncoming councillors or staff saying, if you're wondering why this is done, well, this is some of the history of Warman and how we got here, and just a quick peek in the rearview mirror, and then it's a reminder for everyone coming up down the road.
Any other comments? Councillor Becker.
Yeah, regarding like our directors sitting at the table, I know it's not our, you know, current practice unless there's an actual decision item. I think it is a good opportunity for all of our directors, you know, and that coming even after like their report is presented, just to speak to either other matters or, you know, things that have kind of come up, and, you know, that would, you know, certainly, let's say, add to the flavor, you know, that thing. And also, it gives us as, you know, councilors what we're hearing, you know, out there, you know, and kind of communicate back in that forum that is outside of, you know, the actual report. I very much agree with Councillor C that, you know, directors coming up and reading the report or and touching on the items that have already been, that have been reported on, in, you know, like in the submitted report, that there stays the same. But you know, like there again, if there's any additives, you know, that could, you know, to do on that in terms of, you know, detail updates, I think that you know, that can be communicated at that time, and that we're not just working off of, you know, what's just been presented for us. The other thing it does too is it is that opportunity to build relationships. You know, away from that kind of model, you know, you call it to the table when we have a problem. You know, not whenever it's, you know, it does provide that opportunity for collaboration and things like that. So I think it's a little bit different when they're actually sitting here versus in a gallery, but again, that's just my opinion.
I think we can do that balance the way we've been. If council requests that has any questions, or if they have any updates, anything more to add, I think you leave it open both ways. That if there's something from the director or something that council wants to discuss from a report, both are available. And it really can be declared as we go through the report if there's anything to add. And that sort of solves both for now anyway. And it's one that we can look back and say, is this good? Does this work for us? Because I think efficiency, you know, if we are having everybody in the room, all decision makers, we want to make sure that we have all information, but it's also, you know, is there ways that we're not repeating, and that sort of allows for both. Other comments? You have everything you need from that?
So, yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move down to Director of Finance, Director Carley.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I've got 3 things to bring to you today. The first one being the reserve transfers and balances as reported every year. So we are recommending that Council approve the 2025 reserve transfers as outlined in Appendix A and acknowledge the projected reserve balances in Appendix B. We are expecting to see about a $220,000 increase overall in the reserve, so pretty much keeping it kind of even keel from the prior year. You'll see in my report kind of what those reserve transfers to and from represent, what areas there are. I obviously won't go into details. The schedule is provided there, but if anybody has any questions regarding the transfers or any extra transfers they'd like to see or more information on.
Okay, so there's a bit of information there. Any questions or comments before it comes to next week's regular meeting of council? Councillor Beck, yeah?
Yeah, you know, certainly Appendix A and Appendix B is very helpful, you know, and I think, you know, I really like Appendix A where it kind of shows those individual transactions that, you know, that have, let's say, been approved along the way. So, yeah, honestly, and seeing some of those things, it's like, okay, that's a good reminder as to, you know, some of those things there that we did. You know, and that kind of thing certainly shows how you might plan your budget, let's say, at that November before, and that can get it approved there in December. Then throughout the year, like there's like that number of changes, right? And that kind of, I think building on that comment though, I know we had discussion about trying to implement a 2-year capital plan, or like even like a 2-year budget, pardon me, and that kind of thing. And I don't know, when I see this, and especially some of the balances and the changes of what kind of gets, shown later in our financial reports and the notes and that kind of thing and whatnot. I really question whether or not that would be a good thing going forward. And like I know, coming up to election years, it's a super tight timeline. Any new onboarded counselors or that kind of thing around the table and whatnot. It creates a very challenging environment, but I just don't know that I feel comfortable with that 2-year financial planning, especially when you look at like current things going on there in terms of inflation, like whenever geopolitics right now is affecting every corner of the globe. So certainly from that there, I think it's a great idea to aspire to, and I think I don't feel that we're there yet. So I just needed to incorporate that into my comments on here, but very much appreciated the things that I want to share. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Very clear. Both appendices are very clear. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So next up, we'll talk about the quarterly financial update for December 31st, 2025. Just quick highlights are that the revenue increased 19% over budget, so we're sitting at 119% there. Expenses at 109%, and just kind of a general reminder, we budget for 60% of amortization, but these statements will show 100% of amortization. So a lot of the areas where you're seeing overages on the expense side, it's largely due to that unbudgeted percentage of amortization. It's not actually being over what we budgeted necessarily. But I did give some highlights for the revenues and expenses, kind of explaining what are the drivers of those overages. Additionally, with the capital expenditure update, you'll see for the majority we were under budget for quite a few things. Notably, the Lift 3 was something that was significantly under budget. We are expecting roughly $30,000 of expense to come through on that project still, with a holdback and then some summer work that needs to be done, but we essentially didn't touch the contingency, which is why there's that $400,000 underspend. So that was great. Again, the WHCC expansion, $148,000 under budget there, also great. And that project you will see closed at the end of 2025. There should be no additional expenses for the expansion. So if there's any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments? Councilor Beck.
Yeah. So in terms of questions, I think I'll reserve those for a meeting with Amanda, because I do have a lot of questions on there, and perhaps yourself this year you can come to that too. The one thing that stands out to me, and I think I'm just going to stand on this one aspect. So it's regarding note 12, and it's from the last line there. And this year I was always under the understanding that that any reserve or let's say any transfers to reserves to kind of come up to cover let's say those unexpected expenses, that it's an authorization from council to do that particular work in the capital amount. What I'm getting out of note 12 in that last line is that council gave approval for $60,000 for a grader to keep it in operations. The expenses were not needed and that whatever, but it says in here that it was transferred to a reserve account, and that kind of thing, to support future potential high cost maintenance expenses. I mean, honestly, that doesn't sit right. I mean, and I guess, thinking of, like a practical application for, you know, for people in terms of understanding. It's like asking your parents perhaps, you know, for using the car on a Friday night, right, and whatever, deciding that you're not gonna go, and then you take the car on Saturday morning. Where the plans, you know, might not fit quite as well. So, I mean, I think it's one thing to, you know, to get that approval from council, but then it says like it was transferred to reserve, but, you know, I mean, if it was reported that the expenses were needed and you had the authorization and later that it came out that you didn't, to me, that means that that money would just stay in that general reserve. It wouldn't be transferred to that for, you know, let's say like you know, to that reserve amount for that particular line of service or department. So, so I think I have some greater questions on that and how we actually do that. To me, that $60,000, that what, you know, while it was authorized, should have stayed in a regular account or like the way that we were until the actual invoice comes in. And obviously, if it's over that 60,000, right, then you need to come back to council for the approval on it. Not, oh, hey, we got the authorization, now we're not going to do the work, but we're going to hang on to that money anyways. So I guess that's my overall issue.
I can give an explanation for that. So council would approve that transfer to the reserve, and the reason behind it is because the expectation when we kept this grader would be that there could be some significant expenses, that repairs and maintenance that come along with keeping it in service. And so that didn't happen this year, but we're thinking ahead and thinking, okay, now we could end up with double those sorts of expenses next year. So if we put this in the reserve, we would then still have to come back to council in a subsequent year to request that we use that money back out of the reserves. So council would approve the transfer of this $60,000 to the reserve, and you'd approve the transfer back out if it's needed.
If I can.
Yeah.
So that's what our budgets are for, right? So like there again, each year when we talk about budgets, you know, and that kind of thing, that's the time there to go, hey, you know what, that 60,000 that we, you know, that we had, you know, kind of expected, we didn't actually utilize that, whatever, and that could be an explanation for why the next year might be at that, you know, at a different, let's say, increased rate, you know, that kind of thing, because like there again, I mean, yeah, to me, it throws like the budgeting aspect way out of proportion with, you know, like with the adjustments kind of coming through, but, you know, because then, because when we look at the budget, we understand the budget's going to be wrong, right? Like the budget's just, you know, manufactured that way. Everything's kind of simplified down. You're trying to make adjustments for what it is that you expect. Some of those materialize, some of them don't. New surprises along the way, and that's why we have, and that's why we have what we have. But you know, certainly with that there to now say, you know, like it just changes like the system, where I think that can be done, and you know, certainly at the budget meeting, saying, you know what, yes, you did approve the 60,000. That work there either wasn't done or it wasn't done within the financial year. We still need that, plus, you know, the other things on it, but I think it can be well explained that way. This year just feels like now it's 60,000 put in ahead of time when really that their team should be done at, you know, like at the budget time and not throughout the year.
So this would put it in the unfunded ops reserve, so that money is there when we need it. Because otherwise, if we're coming to council and saying, hey, you know, we didn't budget for this because we didn't expect this to happen, and so now we need to pull money out of reserves to pay for it, eventually we're not gonna have money to take out of there if we're not putting in, right?
Yeah, so, again, if I could push back on that. That's where we have, with like the capital and the operating reserve, you know, not whenever we're, you know, we're over and above like the specified and dedicated reserves, you know, that kind of thing, that there could be drawn on, you know, that kind of thing for that particular aspect.
We wouldn't have one to draw on this for, so that would be the unfunded ops reserve.
Your reserves, right, so your reserve balances, then what are we doing with the future capital reserve and the unfunded ops, right? So the unfunded ops right here, you know, that kind of thing is showing is, let's say, $1 million as of, you know, like the closing balance.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're telling me that you don't need that, we can apportion, proportionally, you know, that there to other dedicated reserves.
For sure. You can only do that for so long where you're not funding it though, right? And you're drawing from it and not funding it. And it doesn't really, like, it doesn't matter either way. It's just that this money then would stay in the unallocated. It would stay in our surplus. It would stay in our unallocated surplus. So rather than transferring it to reserve, it would stay in our unallocated surplus.
Yeah, so we go, so then, because then that's what you're also doing with the contingency reserve, right?
Sorry,
Or is your contingency reserve, is that only capital? Because we have a capital reserve, we have a contingency reserve, which I thought was for operations, but then the unfunded ops reserve, like, you know, like to me, that's like our three fail safes. So that way there, we have budgeted, you know, that kind of thing, those outside of dedicated or discussed budget items and that whatever, that the city manager has authorization to dip into that.
I actually don't have authorization. We would have to come back to council to utilize reserve money in any scenario.
Okay, so that's gonna deepen the line of questioning, probably not best for today, but, like there again, like that questions to me, why bother with the capital reserve and the contingency reserve and the unfunded ops if you don't have access to it, you know, that whatever, and when that's not where we're putting money from, then.
It is where we're pulling money from, but we would come to council and request that.
Oh, okay, so then I can see one for capital and then one for operations, but we technically have three.
We do have three, and we have had discussions about looking at all of our reserves because we do know that we have to do further separation too with regards to offsite development revenue. So we'll do a review of all of the reserves and do some consolidations where we can.
Yeah, so again, like I'm just gonna say that, you know, like we authorize the amount for the unexpected expense for repairs, right, and that whatever. I don't understand why that wouldn't just stay in its general reserve, or like where that money is coming from, you know, that kind of thing, until the actual expense comes in.
So it was,
You know,
yeah.
to actually initiate that, because the further question that I'll have is that 60,000, is that already moved over, or is that amount in what we're going to be transferring over?
That'll be in what council is approving, the reserve transfer.
As in it's already done, or no?
Council is approving it, or not approving
Okay,
it. Yeah.
so like there again, in the end, like we would come up with the same numbers for that particular aspect. It's
It would,
just-
yes, it would not be a transfer to reserve then, so it would stay in our unallocated. And another reason why I would recommend that we do start to do stuff like this is because our unallocated surplus is significantly higher than it needs to be. And so if we start allocating some of this money into our dedicated reserves, it kind of creates that balance in a little bit of a better way.
Okay. Yeah, you know, it's just that, you know, certainly with that there, when I see, you know, we had a meeting to discuss, you know, the actual expense, you know, got moved over and then actually needed, there again, you know, so thank you for some of the clarification. And let's say like a review of the reserves, I think would probably be in order, and whatever, and even if it's, you know, renaming them to kind of frame, you know, the expectation behind that, and yeah, and then, you know, just making sure that you know, that the access to it is certainly for whatever.
Other questions or comments, Councillor Seed?
Just one comment on note 15, where we're talking about a 7K overage in unused expenditures, particularly because of the website. Just a little disappointed to see that. We've talked repeatedly around this table about improving our website. I myself have spent quite a few hours highlighting deficiencies that I've seen on the website. As of recently, some of those are still there. And when I see that we've allocated $7,000 to be improving it, we're not using it, in my mind, that's not acceptable. We're putting a good chunk of money at making sure that website is up to date, accurate, and is very, very professional, and I feel that we're falling behind. So I'm just disappointed to see that we're not utilizing the funds that are allocated there to continually strive to improve that website. So just some feedback that I wanted to offer on that aspect.
Okay, other comments? Okay, thank you.
Okay, my final report is a property tax exemption request we have from Great Plains College. It's actually coming through the property holder, Crystal Clear Developments. Essentially, they have written us a letter requesting an exemption on their property tax, in which they mentioned that they would be passing for those savings on to Great Plains College as the tenant of the property. So we looked into kind of jurisdictional review, the legislation itself. The Cities Act specifically states that in order to be granted this exemption, the Great Plains would have to own and operate the facility themselves, but since they don't, that directly falls outside of that legislation, which then opens it up to being a council exception decision. So in this case, we are going to, administration is going to recommend that council deny the proposed tax exemption because it does fall out of that legislative guidance. Additionally, there is a bit of a concern that it may create a bit of like a precedent to be set, that this kind of thing could come back to council again in various other ways. Specifically, like the business tax incentive is one of the concerning ways that it could come back to council asking for that on behalf of a tenant. We did reach out to a bunch of different municipalities just to kind of get a flavor of what everybody else does, and essentially we found that the only person that's kind of done this exact exemption is Swift Current for Great Plains College. Otherwise, generally, no other municipalities are granting this unless it's specifically stated in the Cities Act as one of the exempted properties, or in a case where there's other legislation that overrides the Cities Act. So in that case, it would be like a healthcare facility. The Healthcare Act does override the Cities Act in that case for some of this as well. So we did come up with 3 different options, obviously to deny the request, accept the request, or a third option, which would be for council to offer a grant directly to Great Plains College. This also kind of overrides the risk of essentially us having no power to administer that funds, savings of funds being passed on to the tenant by just kind of having a direct transaction with City Hall itself. So, yeah.
Okay. Questions, comments? I'll just a quick comment. I appreciate the 3 options. I add the clarity of the report and the understanding, because it seemed like a fairly simple idea, but there's a lot more complex and precedent setting that does have impact. So I appreciate the report. I appreciate the options to ponder over this next week. Councillor Beck.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to comment on the quality of the report there.
Okay.
Like there again, like the act, clearly identified and whatever, and walking us through there. I actually had looked at the letter first, and then I went back to that. So, yeah, so I had my initial thoughts and notes and scribbles and that kind of thing, and then went back to it and was like, okay, looks like we're well looked after, let's say on this particular case, so that's great. Yeah, and like there again, this is one of those areas where your community, let's say has that request, but it doesn't really mesh well with the municipal, either the Municipalities Act or the Cities Act, right? So in our case for the cities, I certainly see where it's a great intent, and that kind of thing, saying, hey, what, we're gonna lease the space for, space issues and that kind of whatever. And I think it's, it's probably one of these areas that, that I think the city, I think of our relationship with SUMA and, and convention and opportunity to speak with ministers and that kind of thing, that, that this is something that we could, perhaps highlight, but certainly with how everything is written right now, this is not something that I would support, in terms of, giving any financial assistance to. And actually, I guess I'm just wondering, like, a little bit behind the scenes, like, did Great Plains College end up, like, at all ever, approach any of our, managers or city manager, like whatever, in terms of having this conversation, and that kind of thing? Because like there again, if we weren't involved in the lease thing and whatnot, and then coming to us now, and then also them asking for, for the equivalent consideration for past expenses like 2025, like that's just not fair to our municipality, right? Like we know the activities that are here, or have a good idea as to what the pulse of that is. We know what our costs are for delivering our lines of service and whatnot. We can't go back and reconsider other things, and this here being outside of scope is really something that we can't really adjust mid-year. So I think if there's any opportunity to bridge that relationship or the gap that will be there on based on the recommendation, that, that hopefully we can show that we're, that we're still a community partner here, but we do have to have that working relationship.
Any comments?
So it was after the, like, kind of after the fact that they did reach out to the economic development officer, so not while they were negotiating leases, no. And then afterwards, I did have some conversations with him too, to let him know that we do, with Brad, to let him know that we do value the relationship and everything that the college brings to the community, but that this, our recommendation is grounded in legislation and precedent, so.
Okay. Oh, excellent, yeah.
Okay, I think Councillor Cripps first.
Yeah. I read the whole report and I got about halfway through and I was like, couldn't we just give them a grant if that's what it was actually about? And then I see that it was a question, I was like, so I don't mind that. Like, I'd be in favor of the grant not going back past years, but going forward. Like, when we talk about economic development and what, we have in our community, these are the kinds of things, and you have one sitting right there, like a perfect example of like, how do we keep our youth in Warman? Well, the more opportunities that we have for the youth to stay here, be educated here, work here, the better. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. I don't know how much trouble they're in, and if it's just looking for more help so they can put more money into the service, but I have no problem with the grant side of it at all.
Councillor Seat.
So I completely support the recommendation that's being presented here. I'm not interested in giving a company this crystal clear, basically a tax write-off to be able to donate $6,000 from themselves. I do like the thought of having a conversation with Great Plains for 2026, not for 2025, that's done, about how, and we'll just use $6,000 as a placeholder or whatever it is, that would be, instead of a tax grant, would be something that council and administration identifies as a priority within, let's say they were, teaching nurse practitioners, and we decide, yeah, that's absolutely something that we want to show support of, whether that's, we're giving them a one-time donation or a yearly donation for $6,000 towards the enhancement of their nurse practitioner program, or something like that, which would be, again, it's a bit of a play on words, but it's still giving them money so that they can do stuff with it, but at the end of the day, it's also supporting our community's initiatives, so. I also found, just as a side note, I found a letter from Crystal Clear to be fairly unprofessional. Signing it Lawrence Fair means nothing to me. I don't know who that is. I don't know what his title is. I don't know what his involvement is. And I just found that to be an unprofessional letter. That it could be, like, he could be the custodian for all I know. I have no idea who he is.
They may come next Monday, right?
Yes,
To
they
present,
yes.
so there may be more talk next week, so just,
Yeah, we can only go
as a
with what we
follow-up.
have in front of us, though.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Other questions or comments? I know for myself, I agree with denying it, but then having a discussion. I think that we're very good partners. I think even with the land work that we have done right now to gain on those things, and I know just reaching out to Brad Mahan went a long way in that sense to understand, but then to understand what their needs are. And I think that we're here. We want to listen to you if there's things that can help to facilitate. Hopefully we can give you tax breaks in the future because you own the building and own more building in Warman. That would be great. So I think that, having those opportunities, because we've talked about expansion of the college and how we want to support that and work any way we can to have that happen. So I agree that it coming from the owner doesn't work for me to deny it, but then open the discussion to say, how can we work together for more things than we already do? Other comments? Councillor Lee.
Once we're done this discussion, I missed a comment that I wanted to give just on Lauren's report as well, if I could just bring that back up once this discussion is done.
Yeah. Okay, other comments on this? Councillor Beck.
Yeah, so I am hoping that if they are gonna make an ask on Monday, and perhaps our administration can communicate this, that if there is an ask for sponsoring, either part of a program, that whatever donation request would be coming forward, that that'd be very clear in terms of what it is that that we're getting over and above, let's say current services. So so I guess just something clear on that, not saying, hey, I'm just looking for donation to cover off the taxes, in this particular case. So because with that, I don't mind being supportive. I also take every transaction there with the realization that these are not my funds, you know, any one of us can make our private donations, you know, whenever, you know, for whatever donation. This is public money, and we still have to remember that we are accountable for that. So if we are gonna support a program, for me, it's gotta be very specific, and it has to be identifiable.
Okay, and I don't think we'd be ready to do that on Monday, so I think our action is probably to deny and then open up discussions that would come with a full package then, to your point.
Yeah, it's just that, you know, if the ask is, hey, you know what, you know, let's say, for that support on Monday in terms of like an actual donation rather than tax abatement, I'm just saying that I need to see things in writing first before being ready to act.
Just a point of clarification then, so Crystal Clear will be here on Monday, or tentatively. Will also a representative from Great Plains be here, or no?
Great Plains, I think, is planning to be here. I'm
Okay.
not sure about Crystal
Okay.
Clear. Do you have
Yeah.
clarity? Don't think so, no. I think
Okay.
it'll be.
Oh, just Great.
Just Great
Okay,
Plains,
okay,
okay.
that may be better to further the conversation then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I guess they're both open if it's still early before, as long as they let us know by Wednesday.
I just want to say, as far as the report goes, in my professional life, I've been involved with some very similar situations, and where you landed with kind of the recommendations and you know, the analysis you did, bang on. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Okay, back to Councillor C.
So
then.
I apologize for, I just missed it on my notes, but under your report, under the capital expenditures update, that you had one item in there that maybe I'm just missing something, but you said, please note that $59,000 overage for the land purchase relates to an additional acre purchased after the original 40-acre agreement was made, as well as some legal fees. When did we hear about this extra acre, or where is it, or what is it? Because I don't recall hearing about it.
Yeah, I'll maybe let Brad speak to
Okay.
that. He has more information there.
Okay.
To be honest, after they did the survey, I don't know, to be honest, it just kind of came up through the survey that there was an extra acre there. And I was under the assumption that, and we have to go back through the agreement to make sure, but that we had either come back to council for the extra 50, whatever, 45,000, or that it was included in the agreement, and then the way the motion read for the agreement that, you know, we had it covered off. But actually, after second looking, it doesn't look like we had, so
Right.
we will be bringing something back to council just to make sure that that's covered off. But yeah, it looks like we ended up with 41 acres, not the 40.
Right, okay, that was my question, because for me, it was like, I know we approved, you know, 40 acres at that price, and we couldn't write the check fast enough, which is fine. But then to see another additional acre, potentially an expenditure of $45,000 or whatever it works out to, I don't remember that coming in front of council, and I was just wondering if that was just
So-
how that got through.
Sorry.
No.
The strange thing about it too is like the check we paid to the lawyer in trust was like approved by council and everything, and then this other acre came up, and we never ended up giving the lawyer any more money in trust, so like we have to do a little bit of investigation there too, just in terms of where this acre came up.
I
Yeah.
think the difference there specifically was that in the original agreement, we were going to be paying GST on it. And then they did an assessment essentially excusing that GST portion. So that portion that we paid for the GST essentially got deducted.
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking for clarification, because even the confusion around this conversation is not,
I know,
It's
it's
not
I'm
transparent.
very much.
But we have 41 acres.
yeah, no, I understand. My concern was more that, where did we come up with an additional $40,000+ that was not previously approved by council? And that's what I want to make sure is that I'm not doubting that everything's on the up and up, I'd just like some clarification on it.
Yeah, we were going back through all the paperwork and stuff too, trying to figure
Yeah.
that out, and we thought that there had been a resolution that came to
Okay.
council for this additional acreage, and we can't, not acreage, and we can't find a resolution.
This is the first, I believe, I've heard of the extra acres, so not that I remember everything.
I just remember like conversations around this, and I won't go into any detail around the table and stuff where, yeah, I thought we had come back with that extra acre, and memory obviously is not the greatest.
Yeah, because I would expect to see, if we in fact didn't pay GST, then I would actually expect to see a reduction in the fees that we had to pay.
That's why,
Over an
yeah,
expense.
that's why the
increase.
extra amount isn't quite as much as you would have
Right,
expected though,
right.
so that kind of makes it a little
Okay,
confusing.
yeah, when we can get some more information, then I would like.
And I apologize for not giving you full security here with my answers, but I'll make sure that when we bring my report back to council, it's got the clarities in there.
Okay. And that'll be a planning report.
Yeah, and I don't think
Yes.
it's an issue, like, if there's an extra acre, there's an extra acre, but we need to be accountable for that, we need to understand, because when somebody comes to me and says, hey, you guys bought 40 acre, or 41, it's like, no, we didn't, we bought 40. Well, no, it says 41, I don't know, shut it, right? So
Okay.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
So, fair enough.
Other questions or comments? Okay, Shannon, thank you.
Great work. Make sure Brad buys you lunch.
We'll move down to planning, Director Tove.
Thank you, Mayor Volchuk, members of council. Just one decision item today at committee, and that's related to the accessibility plan that we put together in 2025. So as council is aware, we brought the plan to them in 2025 just as information and to give some time to digest it. Looking at kind of what other municipalities do and recommendations from the province, it looks like most do go the way of setting up some sort of subcommittee which reviews the report, reviews the recommendations, and comes back to council with its own set of recommendations, not unlike committees that we have already set up for recreation, library, even street naming. So our recommendation today is that we do look at setting up a committee. We've given some suggestions in terms of the makeup of that committee. We felt in terms of administration, obviously myself being part of the project management team, and Paul just being the director and so many facilities falling under kind of his portfolio being an important contributor, but open to suggestions and or recommendations from council in terms of how they'd like to see the committee made up. If there's other members that we've maybe left out or forgot, we've got some flexibility there. What we would do is, I guess, look to set up the committee over the next couple of months with cooperation from the mayor, and then obviously meet, set the mandate of that committee to take a look at the report, and then obviously put together some recommendations that we would then bring back to council for discussion.
Questions or comments? Councillor Beck, yeah.
Yeah, so then I guess I'm defer right back to where I was when we first got the accessibility report. So for a refresher on that, and that whatever, there again, we basically went out, we got a facilitator, and that whatever to come down and actually do a review physically on site for each of our accessible areas and whatnot. And that's the genesis of the report, right? And that thing, and there again, they basically estimated a dollar value to each one of those things. So to me, this is where we already reached out for expert opinion. We got it, we got the report, and that whatever came to council. And from that aspect, like there again, we know what needs to be done, that whatever, and we're the ones that set the budget to it anyways. So I mean, I just think that this is creating an extra burden of oversight from our mayor, also from our recreation manager to be sitting on this when really whatever recommendations come forward anyways will then still need to be prioritized and funded anyway. So to me, we're interjecting an extra step that's really not required. And in terms of getting outreach or actual feedback from our public, I'm sure that if there were accessibility issues right now that that the public has identified or has an issue with, that they would come forward to to administration and report those deficiencies or issues that they're having, and to kind of facilitate the actual discussion. But to me, creating another committee just for creating another committee, so either we can pat ourselves on the back for saying that we now reached out to the community, does not appear fruitful in my mind. So therefore, I stand on that we're the ones that know what to do, we're the ones that hold the dollars. It's our job to kind of prioritize and go from there.
Just one comment back to that. Totally understand the comment, but I guess the only point I would make is that the authors themselves admit that the list of recommendations aren't all absolutely required under code or other legislation or policies. So there is some room in that list of recommendations for interpretation or best practice, or hearing, I guess, directly from people who deal with these types of issues on a daily basis and kind of where their head's at in terms of what we should focus on. I get, if everything was under building code and required as a part of our future, development, it's pretty clear cut. But when you've got some in there that are subjective, hearing from people who it directly impacts, in my opinion, could be important.
Councillor Cripps.
Yeah, you took away some of the comments I was gonna make. You can also, some of them need to be addressed immediately. Some need to be addressed when construction takes place, right? If you're gonna do a renovation, now you upgrade it. So that's kind of where the little ad hoc can come in is, okay, what of these actually need to be done right now? What buildings are we gonna have a renovation on where we can address some of these issues during a renovation, which ones are more, don't need to be required. Because some of them have to be changed regardless whether you do a renovation or not. Others, can wait till the renovation is done. And some of them might, need to be done just for convenience of getting around. That's where someone with a disability can help you, and then someone with some insight on the National Building Code, can help you, direct you into what's actually needs to be done and what is, because lots of these, I ran through some of them, and then I quickly browsed just to refresh myself. Some of them are okay, I'm gonna build a new building, we're gonna do it this way from scratch. But like, that's a lot of money when you go through the whole list, where they aren't all required, right? Like, if you do an upgrade, now we're gonna do an upgrade to City Hall, you do some of these renovations, obviously, at City Hall while you're renovating. RCMP building, same thing. Now a building that we have zero intentions, we just finished the Warman Home Center, so you have zero intentions of doing a renovation anytime soon. Okay, what in there is code? What in there, actually improves people's way of lives, and what in there is just a sign where it's a waste of money and you don't really require. Well, and I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm just saying you're not going to do in there. So there's where you can pick away what we should do, what we need to do, what we should do, and what doesn't really need to be done.
Can I just speak to further what Councilor Tripp said? We've gone through the report fairly detailed with our maintenance department and our arena staff, and we talked about just the signs. That sign is no longer what they say is approved. We have 38 of those signs at $593 each to repair. But that sign is still code. So that's the kind of thing that we're finding a lot as we go through it. We have had complaints from some of our elderly users about a handrail in the arena side, getting down to your seats and stuff. We've looked at that. We meet code, but the railing would be certainly nice and assist those that are elderly and looking to get to their seats. That's another $22,000 to put those railings in. So we just finished MNP Arena. The report states it would be nice to have a secondary elevator in MNP Arena at $290,000. So wading through some of that stuff would be nice to have, and what is affecting people now. I think we have a good pulse on what it is in our facilities, but there are a lot. Lowering the AED machines so that somebody in a wheelchair can access it. Like, there's lots of concerns with that and going forward, but there's lots of work that needs to be done in that. Yeah.
I was just going to add to Paul's comments there, or the Director of Recreation's comments there, that, taking that into account, the committee might take a little bit of pressure, if I can put it that way, off of council too, in terms of recognizing that that's not a code issue. Yes, it'd be nice to have everything consistent, but in our view, we're actually recommending this over that. Whereas then it's a recommendation to you guys that you're just taking a recommendation from this group. You're not necessarily making that decision in terms of public perception. I think it could actually help a little bit in that regard as well. So.
And let's keep the discussion on, we're really saying, do we have all of council or do we have a committee to sort of go? And the recommendation was that we go with a committee,
yes.
As mentioned, but let's hear any other questions, comments about that. Councillor C.
I'm kind of 50-50 on this one, and that's not a position I normally take, but on one hand, in the time that I've been on council, and I've been on the rec board for longer than I've been on council, I'm aware of two concerns that were brought up by people with a disability. One was access in and out of the Diamond Arena. That was rectified to the best of our ability with the current infrastructure that's there, and that was putting a ramp in. And I heard nothing but rave reviews. And that was done like within a week of it being a concern. I'm hopeful that moving forward, when we look at future renovations to the Diamond, there can be some accommodations made for wheelchair seating or something like that. I'm sure that the recreation will look at that. The other one was a resident of Martinsville reached out and said that their son is here visually impaired, and there was no braille in the bathrooms. And I think it was, I don't know, Paul, what was it, 6 days before you had those signs up? Like, we are absolutely a community that values inclusivity of everybody that's there. The report, when I first read it, and I read it only when it came out, I haven't read it since, is a lot of wants and not a lot of needs. And at the end of the day, it would be great to have 5 elevators at the MNP arena, but it's not realistic. When I hear stuff like, Director McGonigal talking about, like, we've had some questions about a hand railing or something like that, I think that's a no-brainer. We look at it, the rec department is more than capable of determining whether it's valuable or not. But I think that my concern with the committee is that we might get some people that are more ideologically pushing for something rather than functionality-wise. So although I understand that council will ultimately vet anything that's there, I don't want to see a situation where we run into, well, the report says you need an elevator, the committee says you should have an elevator, now council's going against putting in an elevator. So the perception of that, well, I understand if you take some heat off it, I don't really care about taking heat off of myself. When it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do, and I think we've done it. So I'm just a little bit concerned about ideological preferences based on a group within the community, not really caring about the financial impacts or the easy to say you should do it. It's a whole different thing to budget for it and actually implement it.
Other questions or comments? A couple comments about that. I mean, I think I look at the rec board, and again, you have people that are strong recreation. They want all these different things recreational, and it's a chance to go through a lot of information and bring it back to council as a report. We don't agree with everything. I think I don't live in the world of any challenges with getting into buildings or anything else, and opening that up to the community for people that want to be a part of this group, I think is fair, just like we do with the recreational board. It does give a different perspective that we don't necessarily bring, and I think that's the part that I have trouble with, that if we sort of go against the recommendation to look at locally, to look at what are the possibilities there, because council doesn't represent everybody and every group in every way, and I think something like this, it's a big document, and to have an ad hoc committee to be able to work on it, and it's something we can say, is it working or not? But I'm supportive of the admin's recommendation that we have myself, another council member, and then we're able to meet and talk and prioritize and then bring different things back. But it also invites a couple of community members to be a part of that maybe have an interest in this area, to be able to help, give a different perspective that I just can't give.
I also agree with the recommendation. I think at the end of the day too, when everything comes back to us, that we get to make the final decision, and so I like that piece of it. I also like the piece that you just mentioned, that there are different eyes on it that maybe live in a world that I don't, would be very helpful as well.
Other questions, comments?
Because the last thing I'll throw out there is, like, the committee will be made up the majority of administration and council, besides kind of the members at large. So I think all it does is just give, the proper due diligence to, like, to your point, a fairly large report that, I know council's busy and you guys are reviewing a lot of things. This just kind of takes a smaller group with a closer lens on an important subject and brings back recommendations to council. So I think it could be of some value.
Do you have what you need? I know there's diverting, I guess at the end of the day. Well, we would do that at a regular council meeting. We wouldn't do that today.
Then I will
Can't
just
make
bring a
motions.
kind of similar report with recommendation. I guess we'll see where the.
Okay, I think that's fair, because that gives time to ponder about it too,
And
and
if anybody is looking for some information between now and council or whatever, just feel free to reach out and I'll try and find that.
okay. Any other comments on this one? No. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'll call you up there. Staff Sergeant Kenny.
Well, good timing, you're next up.
Not quite.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. This, what do we got here? We've got the March update, the RCMP stats for March. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. I noticed our numbers were up slightly, but most of that was due to the provincial traffic. We were higher in provincial traffic there. I see there was a large number of tickets written during March. I'm not sure who that was. I don't think it was my guys, but maybe they're doing more than I thought they were. I know traffic has been ending shifts here in Warman. There's a few traffic guys that live here and like to, yeah. So anyway, you're the beneficiary of those. So, but other than that, we're down in persons offenses, down in property offenses, down in on offense codes. We're down. Like it's looking pretty good for a month that was somewhat hectic. So for us anyway, but yeah. zero concerns for me on that. Vacancies, I have 6 right now, hard and soft. Overall, resourcing is stable. We've got one fella coming in here. He just got his A22 and coming out of Buffalo Narrows. So I'm gonna say like June, somewhere in there, we'll have him here. So, and that's all I know of as of right now, so. The ranch was busy in March. We had 47 calls for service, 13 missing people and 17 violent offenses. So the violence is ramping up out there to a certain degree. We did have a couple of good meetings with the ranch in the province since. We met with the ranch in the province last week, and the ranch has come up with an assessment tool that they're going to use before calling us now. So I believe we have another meeting with the cities too, and the ranch coming up here in the next few weeks. So in any event, we're working with the ranch as best we can.
That's a group.
Yeah, it is what it is. So frauds, I feel like I talk about this every time. We're pretty good here. Like in the city, it seems like people are getting it. We've had fairly good. Well, they got like 2 and 1. The RM McCormick Park, not so much. The RM McCormick Park is like 14 or 15 going on, and each one's like 100 grand. So I don't know why the RM seems to fall more prey to it, but we did a few this I guess spring. We did one in Morden. I think we had about 250 people show up to it. So it's been good. And Morden has nothing. So apparently it's working, but we'll discuss that with the RM and see what we can do to help out there. And finally, the only other thing I wanted to mention here was the DAP meeting on May 11th. So I'm running it a little later this year, so I would, all of council's invited to that.
We have a council meeting that night.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I can, I have a new DAP presentation I'm pretty proud of. I've been working on it for like 3 weeks already, so if I have to, I'll bring it here to show you guys, so.
If 4 of us come, they don't need quorum, everyone will end up over there anyway.
Yeah. Okay, whatever happened, I understand there's competing interests here all the time, so. But as far as I can see, that's all I have, unless there's any questions I can answer.
I just have one question. I know at the beginning, the attitude over at the ranch, not to dwell on the ranch, but I know the attitude over there was like, it's your job to police them. And like, have they come around and kind of more willing to work with you and try and find solutions and have a little accountability?
Only because the RM of Corman Park is holding off on issuing the building permit for the complex meats house.
Okay.
That's why. So the meeting we had, we were there, Derek and I went there, we were there for probably 2 hours, and the first hour was discussing what we're gonna do. The last hour was trying to convince me that they need this house and it has to be built. And I'm like, I'm not convinced. Ultimately, it's not my decision, it's the RM of Park's decision, and the numbers are gonna speak for themselves. So the ranch's argument is that they have these violent kids here anyway. So my experience is that is not the case. It's going to result in more calls. For sure. So, but in any event, they are working with us. Like they're willing to hear what we have to say, and the province is good. Has been good to deal with. So, yeah.
Well, and they plan on giving an update to that group that met
Yep.
at Corman Park, the
Yep.
same group really. And that was already scheduled. That was scheduled
Yep.
before. So
Yep.
so hopefully that doesn't get canceled or postponed like that.
It won't.
Okay.
This is a very strategic meeting. We
Yes.
got called to it very late last week
Okay.
and said, "Can you guys make this meeting?" And yeah, it was.
Okay.
It felt like more of a Dragon's Den pitch than it did an actual meeting. But anyway.
Okay.
So that's my opinion.
Okay.
I wanted to offer some encouragement because I know it's kind of near and dear to you with the fraud stuff. And I've been fortunate enough to attend a couple of the meetings that you've done on the fraud prevention. And the reality is that numbers don't lie. And when the numbers are going down, what's changing? And there's a lot more guys still calling or people calling trying to scam people out of money. So I think that the proactive approach that you've taken in the community and surrounding areas is yielding effects. And so I want to encourage you to keep it up and certainly whatever we can do to assist with that, we're all in. I do really like seeing obviously the speeding numbers. That's the only number I want to see go up as far as convictions or tickets that are issued on that. I do wonder a little bit about, I know that there is direction from, I think even from yourself in the past years about, ensuring that we're doing a couple of the high profile stops, where guys are stopping on coming home at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or things like that. Not to target people that aren't doing anything wrong, but when people see squads with lights flashing in town, they slow down, right? And you realize, oh crap, I can't be racing up and down the street at 6:30 because there's always a cop sitting there or something like that. So, definitely want to encourage some of that as well, but I do know that one of the provincial traffic guys in town has been good for setting up all around my neighborhood, so I definitely like seeing that, but overall, the numbers are, it's crazy to look at the numbers, and they're like, every category is dropping. That's awesome. Appreciate it.
Is there any possibility of changing the DABI, or is it important council's there? Because we won't be there. We won't have any
Honestly,
representation
it's
that
probably
night.
gonna roll over to the same thing. It seems.
So it'll be a lot of what you are sharing with
Yeah,
that size.
I've talked, I'll talk more about what the actual DAP we did, what we
Okay.
did in the DAP this year. I can bring that to council, that's fine.
Okay, maybe if that sort of
Yeah.
gets brought to the next
We
committee
can,
of
we
the
can run
whole.
through that, and I can do 10 minutes.
Okay.
So max, yeah, we can go through that.
And
That's
you know
not-
what our action, you know.
Yeah, you guys have, we're very engaged here. I'm not too concerned about you not being there, but typically
Okay.
what we do is we spend a ton of time, and then 3 people show up.
Right.
Right, what do we have, like 8 or 10 last time we did a DAP meeting, and I was like,
Yeah.
We'd like to be
Anyway.
there to support those.
yeah,
Can't-
out of the
Right.
8 or 10, 5 were from here. So, anyway,
At
yeah.
least you know who loves you.
Yes.
100%. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Councillor Beck?
Yeah, wanted to bring up the discussion on backgrounds, on background checks. So you had presented to us earlier in the year, and like there again, let's say behind the issues on that. And I think it was, we were kind of leaning towards doing away with all of the discounted background checks and going, let's say, full page and whatnot. So I know that our bylaws with Martinsville and that committee, so we had our joint meeting, brought it up, and I was told that there might be a change in plans in terms of that particular, I guess, direction. So
Yep.
if you could bring.
Well, my staff, who I did not consult before because I was very angry the day that we were going through this, suggests it's not gonna make any difference for us. Whether we charge or we don't charge, it's not gonna make any difference on the volume that comes through. They don't feel like it's gonna make any difference on the people that are gonna pick them up or not pick them up. So what we've done in the interim is I was able to secure a 2-year term position. So I have another support staff coming in. So I'm in the final stages, probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks, I should be able to have this person hired. And I have a couple of RCMP employees who are already trained. So if I can work it out that one of them would come in, there's no training and the security clearance is already there. She can be on site here in days. So, and that'll help alleviate a lot of the problems on this side. The Martinsville side, there's not much I can say over there. We suspect one of the girls over there will be retiring this year, and that's gonna leave a wide gap. And what we'll end up doing is just extending the pickup dates. So,
So then if that support staff there works out to, let's say, alleviate the issues, does that mean we'll have to revisit it again in 2 years then?
no, we've always had that position. That's the position that I hadn't seen in 7 years.
Oh, I see.
So they finally agreed with me after, what have I been here, 4 years now, that I need this position filled, and they gave me a 2-year term to cover it off until I can hire somebody. So technically, the incumbent is still in that position until she's gone, which I figure will take about 2 years to get rid of the incumbent and then hire a new full-time person. We'll have somebody here for that period. So that person was always supposed to be here, but just wasn't, so.
Very good to have the update. And yeah, like for me,
Yeah,
it
I
was just
appreciate that.
one of
I
those
should've-
things that I filed in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you.
I should have brought it up, and that's a good point you brought up, so thank you for that.
Other questions or comments? Okay, thanks for all you do.
Thank you very much.
Recreation, any questions, information one, you have some comments? Sure, come on up. We'll have a break after this one.
Sorry, it's getting parched.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mayor Philchuk, members of council. I have 2 reports
Oh, that's right.
present to you tonight. The first one is my strictly my informational report, which is ongoing. So if there's any questions coming out of that report.
Anything from information?
The second report I have is a request to transfer from Recreation Reserves $33,599. There are 2 factors that are presenting into this request. One is the miscommunication of $14,848, which should have been added in at budget time, but unfortunately was overlooked. And the second portion of that is the rebuild of compressor 2 at the Warman Home Center Communiplex, C2. was budgeted at $55,000, and it actually came in as priced of $73,751. So, and that results in a shortfall of $18,751. So, at this time, I would like to request a transfer from reserves in the amount of $33,599.
Okay, any questions or comments about this? Councillor Seat?
Just one question, the glycol, I bet, thing is, I'm not surprised, because you never know how much you're gonna need until you put it all in anyways. With regards to the compressor, is this, one company came in, did a guesstimate, and then once they started looking at it, went, oh, it's worse than we thought?
No, this is a scheduled maintenance
Okay.
that we have with Simco. We use the number that we had from last season.
Right.
When we rebuilt C1. So when we initially talked to them, they didn't think that there was going to be much difference in the rebuild, and once they got into it, they went, yeah, there's a little bit more here than what's going to be. So those are the results of the two.
Right. I mean, I from my standpoint, I look at it and go like, nobody loves it, but what are we gonna do? Shut down the Communiplex for $18,000? I don't think so. Right?
Other questions or comments? Okay, thanks for bringing this forward. Okay, bring it next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. It's 2:15, so 2:25. Check your emails. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. It is 2:25, okay? And we'll move down to Chief Austin.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So, sorry, I just walked back in here. Yeah, find where we're at. So much stuff this meeting.
Report 1, replacement of Command 16.
There you go. Okay, so, yeah, just outlined my report. We went through all our due diligence. We held off on doing the replacement of the truck because we heard that this was gonna come down the pipe, that police vehicles were gonna be, or fire trucks could go through the police lineup. Basically what it does is they build 1,000 of these things at a time, and they just paint them for whatever municipal color so we could get in on the ordering process. So that's what we did. We waited off. Heard from Humboldt that they were getting the Interceptor car for their bylaw people, which, oh, good for you. But yeah, so it turned out well. We did our pricing, did our due diligence, contacted everybody who needed to be contacted, and that's the list that we came back with right there. So not only is it the cheapest if you were just comparing apples to apples, but it also has a whole bunch of add-ons that save us probably another $5,000 over and above that we would have had to buy separate. So that's the recommendation I have before you.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like you see the price difference, it's incredible. The guy, it's excellent. What a way to save money, and that's sort of that procurement, I guess, idea that, that's in action, but it's not local, but we, at the same time, it's, we don't have a dealership anyway right in Warman, so.
Yeah.
Councillor Seat.
Just one question, do we, what's the intention with the current command vehicle? Do we put it at auction, or?
Well, so originally, the plan was maybe we take the emergency lighting and stuff off and ship it to auction, ship the truck off and then reuse lights. And it was suggested to us by quite a few people actually to, if we are gonna sell it at auction as is, because it's a completed package and it's worth way more money in these days. People are buying fire apparatus and stuff. So it's either going to be that, or we will hold on to it for Chief Schwartz to have something to drive around with as well. But chances are we'll send it to auction and let some other fire department. We'll take the door sticker off and off we go, because that's going to get us our best return on the asset. So.
Yeah, my thought was that you must, in your network, must know somebody that's looking for a truck that's well used with the.
There is a few, and yeah, then you don't have to buy it from scratch, right? So I'm sure somebody will put it to work and put another few $100,000 on it.
How many gallon?
120.
Brandon?
120 at alternate speeds.
Yeah.
Alternate types
10
of
times
terrain.
20 hours on
Yes.
it.
Other questions or comments? Okay.
That's it, that's all. And then just a statistical report that I had there just for information only.
And thanks again for your leadership with our resolution at SUMA. I mean, you worked hard. You even had an announcement from the minister right beside you, not pertaining to us, but you've built up a good relationship with the minister and I think with the other people throughout the province. So it was great to have you sitting there as we talked about our resolution and it passed, but just even getting all the information together and giving us, really working with us through all of this, and let's continue to push and hopefully get improved services here in Warman.
Yeah, 100%, and that was the whole SUMA thing. Like, thanks to Mayor and Council for that too, because the pretty darn good team effort. It went at it from the political side and the operation side and met in the middle, and I think that was a heck of a way to do it. So it's a good job for everyone.
Second most votes.
That's right.
But when there's only 18 people that said no.
Right.
17 of them on their own ambulance.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move down to EPDEV. Ashley.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to take a few minutes to share the WOBE plans and open the floor just to any comments to make sure that we're all on the same page and there are no surprises there, especially with the proposed partnership with the Chamber. So I'm open to any comments about any of that or anything else in my report.
I'll start by saying that I think it's great. I like that we're working with the Chamber. It's nice having them here. It feels like you and Angela have a great relationship as far as talking things through all the time, and so this just adds another component to it. And I think them getting something free for it to give that type of support though really works for me. I like it. I don't really see it really giving any decision-making powers over to them, because I think that was more our concern, to say it's our event. Let's make sure it stays under our umbrella, which it will.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Seat.
Yeah, definitely echoing some of that. Like, I like seeing us work with the Chamber, and obviously, Angela's been great to represent our community and such as well, but at the end of the day, final say's got to come down to you, right? Because that was part of the concerns. I know that we want to make sure that it's primarily Warman focused, obviously, and not letting anything creep in on that. Has there been any consideration, we talked about it before, about doing some kind of networking event for businesses at the end of like Friday night or something like that? Like, I know that businesses before, I think we did it like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. And I do know that it was well received, and now that the Legends, one of the concerns was that the Warman Home Center Communiplex wasn't licensed at the time, and that was providing difficulty to get a permit to be able to sit around afterwards and have a few people networking. Now that it's licensed, that shouldn't be any issue, right? So I think that there's some, much like SUMA, when we go there, it's great to be part of the annual thing, but you get some tremendous networking when you sit around have a beer or something. So I think that offering businesses to be there and it ends at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever, and have a 2-hour networking event where it's just people having the ability to talk and sit around, I think might be well received. Ultimately your decision, but I think that's something that I would like to see, the potential to come back and even, for those of us on council that are available to attend and just be there, to talk, for people to talk to us would be a good opportunity, because it's difficult when you're walking around the event and you want to engage with some of the vendors, you want to talk to them and stuff, but if anybody comes up to the booth, you just try to get out of the way, right? So you don't quite have that one-on-one time that would be nice. So.
I think that was a part that the Chamber was actually part of in the past. They actually looked after that in the past, but I think it was pre-COVID, and we did have that networking opportunity the Friday. There may have even been entertainment, but I'm not sure. The 1 year, yeah.
Yes.
Or there's local band or something playing, but
We got craft places here that can sponsor beer and do all kinds of stuff to come up with
Cheese is lying in the corner over there.
Yeah.
other comments, Councillor Beck?
Yeah, I certainly like the aspect of, kind of reaching out to, to bringing the chamber in to be a little bit more inclusive into the event. I think that's a responsibility. And, certainly, in terms of tasks and that kind of thing, obviously this year, I think it'd be good to make sure that, that it's clearly identified what you're looking after, right, that kind of thing, and any delegated responsibilities to her, and that's whatever that you're getting like that coordination and that feedback. So there nothing falls in, either gets left undone or she feels that she can kind of, or the chamber feels that they can take ownership of that, it's just that way the ultimate responsibility always stays with us. And there again, I don't say that out of, protectionism, I say that out of, this is our event, this is, fully paid for, let's say by us, other than, then the booth prices, right, and that kind of whatever. So therefore, it's the city of Warman trying to build relationships specifically for our businesses, and there again, whatever we can look at regionally, and that kind of thing, we can, certainly take that on. So I think, that's the focus that I would, still like to maintain from a branding and community perspective. Like we have kind of talked in the past about what can we do to make it more than just a trade show, and that kind of thing, a little bit more engaging and whatnot, and that kind of thing. So I think that there's probably still some more work to be done in terms of how to generate a little bit more excitement and probably diversifications over there. We do have, let's say like the kids just excited to, to come out as much as the parents, right, and that kind of thing. So, if there's any way to, include, like any kind of learning activities, and I guess I was kind of thinking along the lines of fire department, not whatever, if there's any opportunity there to, to put on like an educational session for, like what would it be, like choking hazards or things like that, and whatever, just something there to just roundtable, make, just make it where like there is a little more to do other than just kind of walk around to the, let's say to the booths, because it does feel like it's that, like that confrontational thing, rather than, just here, mill around, have some coffee, like a little bit more networking, rather than that, you walked around it, similar businesses to last year and then move on. And I guess kind of reflecting on last year, like we had the entertainment, company, that was in that, that you get wired up to, and you had that 10 by 10 space where it was like that video interaction, right? So like there are things like that, and yeah, like just other ideas. I don't want to throw a whole bunch of ideas to you, but I guess I'm just trying to, have it where it's not just the trade show aspect. We are trying to do other things and really draw people in, right? With the recommendations for booth prices and that kind of thing, like there again, it would still be good to see, what that's going to look like budget-wise. To me, this is one event where, like I said, because we're kind of relationship building with our, with our businesses. For me, it doesn't have to turn a profit. At the same time, the consistency aspect needs to be there for me in terms of knowing what our budget is, what our expectations are, and things like that, and really making sure that we have a solid lineup to, to generate some excitement. So I'll leave it at that.
Other comments?
Sorry, I had one thing, and I apologize. I've been to so many different trade shows and different things. Like, I don't think we did this, but I had a business talk to me about doing, for lack of a better term, like a bingo card where you buy, 10 or 12 different unique stamps, and each day they go into a different booth, and the kids or the adults or whoever get a card that you have to visit that booth, get a stamp, you enter it for a prize to win. We've never done that at Wolfie, have we?
No, but you've mentioned it.
Right,
before.
okay, yeah, sorry, because
And
a
I think it's
business,
good idea.
I think last year was the one that brought it up, like, hey, this is a good way to get people around, and then you always make sure the four corner booths get a stamp. It's kind of like going to the bread or the milk or whatever, they have to kind of walk through everything, so something like that is like dirt cheap, and is a good way to get people involved in going to multiple booths, because they all want to win. It could be City of Warman swag, it could be anything, like something that makes them actually want to take part in it, but I think that something like that is a fun idea, so do something consistently.
The annual one. Sharing the workload, though, as you mentioned, is important. I think that's that's a good way of going and somebody that you've worked with for sure. Any other comments? I do want to mention the regional partner meeting, and that's something new with Sarita that we have. We're not, so Sarita's going around and meeting with each of their communities members, and Richard and I will be there. Our Councillor Beck and I will be there on April 23rd with the CEO and our representation from Sarita, and just really going through our strat plan and our information, and then where we can maybe align any supports that we could get from Sarita and what we're looking for. So I think it'll be a two-way conversation to really look at how Sarita can support us, and just if there's, so I want to bring that forward to everybody just so you understand what that is. It's a little bit different. It's the first time they've done that, but I think they've already met with a few communities too. It's not a question. Slowly putting on that. Other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions or comments for Andy? Councillor Steve.
Just one question, and it's my own ignorance on it. I like seeing the engagements or that we're getting on things, and I see that consistently and obviously as a local media source, the coverage that we get from the Gazette is very good. When we have events that are happening, do we do any kind of not press releases, but information that we send to other media outlets as well, just to let them know what's going on, so they can see if they pick up on it or not? I'm not questioning your process. I'm just wondering. I know if word gets out there, quite often they'll call and ask for a comment from the mayor or something like that, or what's going on. But I'm just wondering if there's a process to broaden those horizons as well for other. I know print media is, not really popular in other jurisdictions, but I'm just curious as to what we do for that.
Yeah, when we have events we do, such as Wolby, I don't know, we don't have a lot of events that we would prioritize in that kind of category. But when we do have events, we do promote the Wolbies and the big events that we have happening. For example, April Fool's Day, it's like we shared that across North America. It was massive. But when we have something that's local, Ashley does a great job of putting it on social media and boosting it as well. But when we do have events that are noteworthy, it's usually social media because it's local. When Warman Fire Rescue is doing a big event at their place, sometimes we'll share it with Saskatoon, but it's usually more of a local thing. Right. But when we do have them, we're totally open to doing anything like that.
Okay. Do we have other media outlets that follow our page? And we, like the CTVs and places like that on their.
Oh yeah. And most of the radio stations follow us actually now.
Good. Yeah. Thanks.
I know this is a March report, but you brought up April Fools, and we talked about it last time I saw you about how many different cities across Canada, people that I know that were, sending me a text or whatever and commenting on it. So I just thought that deserves some recognition. That was really awesome. And I heard the one ad on CKOM this week or last week, and thought it was really well done too.
Well, they believed it, that's why. They thought it was, no. And a friend of mine lives in Seattle, saw it on, he said one of the newscasts were showing April Fool's things from across the world, and they showed in England there was a tree that they grew mushrooms on or something, and then they posted ours. They showed the zip line.
Well done.
So,
It's a good idea.
Well, it's good. And the press releases, I know those go out to the media in Saskatoon when needed. I think we don't want to overdo it, but I think when we have something we want, and there's a lot of times when we do send something out like that, they will reach out for some type of further comments if we pick those ones that really are press releases that come out of our meetings, our budget, or whatever it might be. Any other comments? Okay, motion to adjourn. Councillor Dooley.
I move to adjourn the April 20th, 26th. Seconder.
Councillor Seed. All those in favor? Carried.